Good day, grade 12s. My name is Carden Madzokere. I'm the author of the distinction-bound student textbooks. I've written economics grade 10, 11, and 12, and then I've published business studies grade 11 and 12 for Mr. Taweze Rashoko. Welcome to episode number 2 of Teaching on Wheels. Right, in this episode, we are going to focus on business cycles. Right, so we are going to look at we are going to first start by defining business cycles, obviously. Then we'll look into 4 units, which is number 1, composition and features of business cycles. Number 2, causes of business cycles. Number 3, smoothing of business cycles. And lastly, features underpinning forecasting. All right, so let's start with the definition. So business cycles are successive periods of fluctuations in economic activity. Now, what is meant by that? It means, let's start by looking at the word successive. So this is successive as in what comes after what. For instance, Thabo Mbeki succeeded Nelson Mandela. All right, so that's the succeed we are referring to. So since we are saying business cycles are successive periods, that means there is a period that succeeds another period, and then some other period succeeds that period. All right, so what periods are they? We have 4 periods. Number 1, we have a recession, we have a depression, we have a recovery, we have a prosperity. So a recession comes, but it is succeeded by a depression. That depression is succeeded by a recovery. That recovery is succeeded by a prosperity. That prosperity is succeeded again by another recession. So we have periods succeeding one another. Now, the word fluctuations means up and down. And then last but not least, economic activity is what is changing in this case. Economic activity does not just grow in a steady fashion, it goes up and down. There are times when we produce more goods and services, there are times when we produce less goods and services. And we measure this ups and downs using the main economic indicator, which is GDP, gross domestic product. So the total market value of all final goods and services that we produce in this country over a specific period of time, usually over a year, does not grow in a steady fashion. It goes up and down. So when it goes down, we say we are going through a recession, but then it's not just as simple as that. In reality, we have ups and downs during an upswing, and we have ups and downs during a downswing. We call that real business cycles. But in this case, I'm talking about a typical business cycle, which is smoothened for explaining purposes. But in the real world, it doesn't happen like that. We have fluctuations within an upswing. We have fluctuations within a downswing. It's like that. So precisely, we would say a country is said to be officially in a recession when it goes for 2 consecutive quarters going down. All right, so basically that's what we are looking at. So let's then move on to the composition. All right, so I've said the phases. Okay, so you have economic activity on your vertical axis, then you have time on your horizontal axis. Then you draw a line that goes up and down. The first part that goes down, that's a recession. The last part, that's a depression. And then the first part that goes up, that's a recovery. The last part that is a prosperity. Right on top, we have a peak. Right at the bottom, we have a trough. Then we draw a line that indicates the general direction in which the economy is heading. We call that a trend line. So you know what the word trend means, right? It shows this is the general direction in which our economy is heading. So you can see in most cases it's a positive trend in most cases, but it doesn't always happen like that. It depends on what's going on in that particular country. But under normal circumstances, over time, the trend line goes in a positive direction. All right, so moving on to other things, right? The distance between a peak and a trough, that which measures the intensity of a business cycle, we call that an amplitude. Then from a peak to a peak, or from a trough to a trough, we call that the length of a business cycle. So our length is measured from peak to peak or trough to trough. In other words, it has all four phases. It has recession, depression, recovery, and prosperity. Then the question is, what causes these ups and downs? Why is it that we don't have an economy that just goes up? Well, we have two explanations to that. So we are already moving on to what? Unit number 2, because that's causes of business cycles. Well, what causes our economy to do that is basically exogenous and endogenous reasons or causes. Right now, it depends on who is talking or who is looking at it. Well, according to the monetary school of thought, which was started by Professor Milton Friedman, markets are inherently stable. That's what they believe. They believe that markets are stable. Fluctuations are caused by things from outside. So in other words, they're saying fluctuations, these business cycles are caused by exogenous factors. So they're saying, but if you look at it, it's true, right? Because let's look at what we are having currently. Our economy was doing, say, well, okay, fine, during that time, not as bad as it is right now, but our economy went down significantly due to COVID-19. And so that is something from outside. It is an exogenous reason. And so we can say, yes, the monetarists were right? When they say that markets are inherently stable. Right, according to their argument, that's what they are saying. Fluctuations are caused by things from outside. So, and one of the main things they blame these fluctuations to is government intervention. So according to the monetarists, government should stay away from markets. Government should not intervene. Right. So then we move on to the other cause. And the other cause is endogenous. Okay, this is according to the Keynesians. They say markets are inherently unstable. So they are saying the opposite of what the monetarists are saying. They are saying this is normal. That is how markets operate. So something from outside should actually come and smoothen these cycles. And so it takes us to smoothing of business cycles. So according to the monetarists, markets are inherently stable. Fluctuations are caused by exogenous factors. According to the Keynesians, markets are inherently unstable, and so something from outside should actually come. So in other words, they're suggesting that government should intervene. Government should come in and cause and influence a smooth growth as opposed to what markets naturally do, because the word inherently mean naturally. All right, so then that is what they say. So moving on to the next thing then, smoothing of business cycles. How is it that we do it? Well, we have two policies that we mostly use. We have the monetary policy, which is executed by the South African Reserve Bank. So it's the governor, Lesetja Hanyaho, together with his monetary policy committee, which is led by which consists of his deputy governors and other members of the MPC. Right, so these guys, they are responsible for money supply, they're responsible for the interest rates, the repo rate. So currently our repo rate is at 3.5%, which is very, very low. That means credit is cheap right now. And it makes sense for credit to be cheap at this moment because it will entice businesses to go out and to go out for credit, and then if they qualify, they get money, they use the money to manufacture whatever it is that they need to manufacture. And then the other side is the fiscal policy, and this policy is implemented by the Minister of Finance, and currently it's Tito Mboweni. And I'm doing this video in January 2021, and next month the Minister of Finance is going to present a budget speech, and currently there are debates going on in as far as taxes are concerned. Some economists believe that because there are speculations about a possibility of an increase or a hike in tax rates. of which it will be mostly the opposite of what we know, as in during times like this, the finance minister will probably lower tax rates and and increase what government spending. But there are speculations that he's going to increase tax rates, which is contrary to what we normally know, that during times like this, but the reason is they want to procure some COVID vaccine. So that's the argument. So we don't know what's going to happen. We will just speculate up until the budget speech is actually presented. All right, so moving on to the other thing, we then have what we call the new economic paradigm, or a way of thinking, which sort of says government should focus less on fine-tuning and more on eliminating uncertainties with regards to the fiscal and the monetary policy. And government does this by approaching the demand side and the supply side. So a demand side policy is simply a policy that tries to stimulate aggregate demand, and a supply side policy is a policy that tries to stimulate aggregate supply. So in other words, a demand side policy focuses mainly on consumers, and a supply side policy focuses mainly on producers, because consumers are the ones that are mainly responsible for consumption or for demand. They are the primary participants, and so us households, we are the primary participants. So a demand side are the ones that demand the most. All right, so moving on to the next thing, that demand side. So we use the fiscal policy and the monetary policy, because if you look at let's say the fiscal policy, let me show you how it is or can be a demand side policy. Right, with the fiscal policy, if government wants aggregate demand to increase, precisely if the Minister of Finance wants to stimulate aggregate demand, he is simply going to decrease tax and increase government spending. You see, that move is going to shift the demand curve to the right, because if he reduces tax, that means there is more money in our pockets. Disposable income goes up. And if he increases government spending, that means all those things that, let's say, construction of roads, public goods and services, anything that involves maintaining public goods and services. Like, okay, I used to see this all the time when I'm driving around Free State and all that. There's been lockdown and things have been tough for us households. And then you're driving, let's say, from Kronstadt to, let's say, Frankfurt, and on your way you see a lot of small companies fixing potholes. Then I'm like, oh, okay, this is a way that government can give back, like government can spend and ensure that economic activity begins, because someone has been going through a lockdown, things have been tough, so economic activity has been low. So to stimulate that demand, government can simply spend on things like that. And so those people who are now working on roads, they now get money and they use that money to go and demand. So do you see that it is a demand side policy? The other side is a reduction in tax. That simply shows your disposable income goes up. So that extra money that you have due to the decrease in tax, you go and spending. That's demand, so increasing aggregate demand. So yeah, then the monetary side, look what's going on right now. I mentioned it before. I said the repo rate is currently at 3.5%. That means credit is cheap, so that is going to entice people to go for credit. The other side is the supply side. So a supply side policy is a policy that is going to stimulate aggregate supply. In other words, it's going to make businesses produce more, so they are going to supply more. So this can be done by increasing efficiency of markets, decrease production cost, and increase efficiency of key inputs. All right, then the last unit will then be features underpinning forecasting. So we have leading indicators, lagging indicators, coincident indicators, and composite indicators. Now, what I usually say to simplify something that is leading, something that is lagging, and so on, I usually use the example of rain. you can tell that it's about to rain if you look up. Like when it's really about to rain, you can tell that something is coming. Then you start running. So it's anything that tells you that it's about to rain before it actually rains. That's what I'm comparing to a leading indicator. So a leading indicator will show that a recession is coming, right? A depression is coming. We are about to reach a peak, something like that. So anything that shows us before it actually happened, it is leading because it shows before, right? Then I normally say, when it's raining, can you tell that it is raining? Yes, when it's raining, you can tell. You go stand outside, you become wet. So that shows, oh, so when it's currently raining, there is something that happens that confirms that it is raining. Same applies. Coincident indicators are indicators that will confirm that this for sure is a recession, right? Because it happens at approximately the same time as what is currently happening at that time. Then the next one is a lagging indicator. This shows after. So these are indicators that will confirm that there was a recession after the recession has passed. Just same applies. If it rains while you are sleeping and you could not tell that it was raining, in the morning when you wake up, can you tell that it was raining last night? Of course you can, because you look outside, you see it's wet and all that, so you can say, oh yes, it was raining. So that confirms that, of course, I did not see it rain. I didn't see that the rain was coming, but I can see that it did rain. So it's simply something that shows after. So I can say it's lagging. So a lagging indicator will confirm that there was a recession, something like that. Then the last one is a composite indicator, which tracks, like I would say, just the word composite put. So it's all the other three indicators, as an index. So yes, it's the leading, lagging, and coincident combined. So that's a composite, like the word composite. All right, then we have other terms that we use, when we are forecasting. Number one, we use the length. So we can use the length to predict the next length of the next cycle. So we can use this length to predict, because we are using it to focus, right? So we can use the length. We can use the amplitude to predict the next amplitude. All right, now as we do that, we are using what we know to predict what we don't know. And that technique of using what is known to predict what is not known, that technique is called extrapolation. And then we also have moving average as one of the tools that are used for forecasting. All right, this brings us to the end of my episode number 2, which is business cycles, teaching on wheels. Thank you so much. Would you please subscribe to my YouTube channel? I'll be so grateful. That will actually give me motivation to keep doing this, to keep helping you with those terms. And if you have something that you are suggesting, maybe to make it worth your time, if you have any suggestion, comment down below, and I respond to all my comments. My channel is not as big at the moment, so I personally do that, but maybe if it expands to a point that I cannot read and reply every message, then I'll see what I can do at that time. But at this point in time, you can comment down. I'll definitely respond to your comments. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.